Hello.
Yay!
Yeah, we've
All
got
right.
all the screens set up. It's
I
like the
figured
phone, the
we're set
computer,
up.
the mic.
Yes, I have my notes down here, and I have you over here, and I also have you over here. So, all right. So, everyone, welcome. Drop in any questions that you guys have for me or Alexa. Alexa is a success and mindset coach. So, now's a really good time to take advantage of that. You don't always talk to a success coach. So, this is a great time to ask any questions about mindset, career, anything like that. Otherwise, answer the question, what is your biggest challenge that you're facing right now as you move towards your goals? And then we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So stay tuned for the end. We're going to answer all your guys' questions. So, Alexa, tell us about a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are today, and what you're doing.
Yeah, amazing. I love this question. So I have quite a varied background. I come from corporate, I come from sales and recruitment. I worked for some big organizations in Las Vegas, like Wyndham and Hilton in sales, which was kind of a great little spurt in my life. And then when I came to Australia, I transitioned into recruitment. And then prior to that, I was in hospitality. Prior to that, I worked in a few non for profits. And so my Ooh,
Or what happened?
that,
You're
sorry.
good. No, you're good.
Someone tried to call me. Prior to that, I was a non for profit. So my background is very varied. I haven't always been in the helping profession. And prior to starting my coaching business, I was in corporate recruitment. And so, with that being said, I have always known that I wanted to be in a space where I could work with women, where I could make an impact. But I always really struggled with that because any jobs that I had prior to this role, I was working for non for profits. I was making minimum wage. I was burning out. I had no support. It was always this compromise, right? It was always like, oh, well, if you want to make a difference or if you want to do something that's impactful, then you can't make money and you can barely pay your rent. And there's a bit of, I think a lot of people think that when it comes to being in the helping profession. And as I got older, I kind of had to prioritize, like, what do I want my life to look like? And I needed money to do that. I have a partner who lives overseas. We now live in Australia together, but traveling back and forth, it made it really tricky in terms of financially being able to grow together and see each other. And so I transitioned into sales and I had a really great career. I was really, really successful during that time in my life. I was 23, 24, 25, and that was the first time that I was really ever making six figures and had the freedom and the flexibility to do the things that I wanted to do and travel. And I felt so empowered. But at the same time, I felt so insanely unsatisfied with my job and what I was doing. Although it had a great payout in the end, it was not worth it. And so I always vowed to myself that when I got the opportunity to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I would take it. And when we moved to Australia in 2018, I had 3 months before I could work. And it just hit me. It was like, now is my opportunity. Now is the time to really figure out and really lean in to what I want to do. And full transparency, I had no clue about the coaching industry before 2018, none whatsoever. Um, I was a total skeptic. I was totally black and white in my mindset in terms of what I thought was possible for me. I had never really thought about entrepreneurship. But the more that I started to really work on my personal development, work on my mindset, and grow, the more I started really realizing I wanted to work with women and stumbled across the coaching industry and the coaching profession and saw that you could actually make a living and help people change their lives. And I just saw that and I instantly was like, this is it. This is the thing that I want to do. Immediately applied for my certification and for ICF and for NLP, which was great. And then I kind of went into recruitment and, studied and did all that stuff. And then literally a year ago today, or not today, but around this time, maybe like a week or so, I quit my job with no side hustle, with no clients, no website, no Instagram, no following. Never ran a business before, but I was so ready to create the life that I wanted to live. And now a year later, I've got multiple programs and courses and clients, and essentially creating my dream life, kind of. Always working towards it more and more each day. But that's a little bit about what I do and how I've ended up in this space in a nutshell.
Yeah, that is so amazing. So congratulations for your success right now. It's like a lot of hard work to do all those courses and everything. So, I mean, it must have been such a whirlwind doing all of that.
Yeah.
But so tell me about like your transition. How did you move through any of the fears that you had or like the conditions that, we've been programmed to? How did you bust through that? How did you break out of that?
Oh gosh. I think, as I said, I quit my job essentially on a whim. I won't even say that I really had it planned out because I didn't have a side hustle, right? I had no clue what it meant to run a business. Um, and so I think for me, I reached this point. I literally woke up one day and there was a voice in my head that was like, Alexa, it is now or never. You're either going to do this, you're either going to like talk the talk and walk the walk, or you're just gonna like pretend that you're gonna do it and like mess around and just keep kind of being perpetually unsatisfied. And I think that I'm very much like an all or nothing person. And I think for me, I needed to be all in. Um, but I think that through that, like I quit my job and I was like, now what? I had to put the work in. I had to work on my mindset. I had to actively work on my fears. I had to invest in people who could help me work through those processes and those fears. And so it was daily combating. It was daily putting in the work, figuring out what I wanted, being honest with myself, and really, yeah, really just being transparent in the terms of like, it's okay if I'm changing. It's okay if I'm evolving. It's okay that, I didn't used to think this and now I think this. As an ex skeptic, someone who used to think like, I used to cringe at like manifestation and spirituality. And now I lean into it. And it's something that I teach clients, which is very ironic. I had to be okay with that. I had to be okay that I was growing and I was shifting and I was changing. And that really welcomed so much goodness. So I had to learn to say yes a lot. And I had to learn to leave my ego at the door because that was how I lived my life. And yeah, but obviously so much more than that, but constant work, constant showing up for it. So yeah.
I love that you said that. We had this conversation before because for anyone who doesn't know, we've done this before. We actually had this conversation for my podcast last week, and it was the biggest epic failure of my life. No, I'm just kidding. But I forgot to press record, and so that whole thing was just like such a bust. I have all the video and no audio for it, so whatever. We are here now.
Very good.
But I love that you say that you were such a big skeptic and I used to laugh at the people who talked about that because I was the same way. I totally laughed at people like that, like positivity, manifestation. I was like all that woo woo stuff. And now here I am. I love talking about it. I'm a big believer in it. And I just love that you say that because it's important to like tell people that, like you could change and your mind can change and it's okay. Like you can like admit it and you know
Yeah. And I think it's such a control tactic, right? Like when we don't want to let something new in, we want to have like a limited amount of information that we can control and that we can know and be experts in. And I was totally like my way or the highway. There's only one way that this is going to work. And I've really become literally the polar opposite of that. Like obviously we're all still working through things and we're always growing, but it's actually quite crazy to see the progression and to see the evolution when you start to say yes and when you start to really have this self-awareness to know, well, why am I thinking that and why don't I want to do that and why am I so threatened by that, and really starting to ask yourself some better questions. And so so much of building a business is just that. It's just like personally growing, humbling yourself every single day, failing a lot, getting back up. um, it's quite a process. But yeah, I think it's really important to share that too, because I think that people think we just came out of the womb like,
Knowing everything.
and that is not the truth whatsoever. This has taken time, and this has taken intentionality and evolution. You know, it's definitely not an overnight process.
Yes. So, what was when you were switching from going from a 9 to 5 and you wanted to be an entrepreneur? What was your mindset back then? What was like the final straw that made you be like, okay, this is it. Like, I need to do this, or else it's now or never. Like,
Yeah,
what was
such a good question. I think for maybe my entire adult life, I had been living with this sense of disappointment of what I was doing, right? I had an amazing university experience, which I absolutely loved, but it was a total bubble. And I entered the real world and got smacked very hard by reality. Um, and it was pretty much from that time moving forward, I felt like I had all of this potential. I felt like I could do so much more. I felt like, I was always feeling these things, but I had no clue what it looked like. And I had no clue how to balance all of my desires, and I was constantly compromising, as I said, and I always felt like I wanted too much, right? I always felt like, I'm being greedy, or I'm being selfish, or I'm going to have to make a decision one day. You can't have everything. Totally. If I could just if I could sum up my mindset in a phrase, it would really be like, that's not reality. You can't have everything. Like, it's such a little brat. And I think that in my job, I think once I figured out that there was an actual way that I could live in something that made me satisfied and excited me, and I felt so passionate about, and I could make money, and I could be, and I could have my own time and be free to, and the fact that I wasn't showing up for that, the fact that it took me, I was totally fucking around when it came to getting my certification. I was taking my sweet ass time. I was like, it was just ridiculous. And that's why I woke up that one morning and it was like, Lex, it's now or never. You're either going to show up for the life that you want or you're not. And it was like, how dare I not be doing this? Like, I know that if I really think that I'm like full of this potential, why am I not doing anything? Like, it was just this aha moment of like, oh, I can do it all. I just have to actually get my ass up and do it. And so I think for me, it was that moment where, yeah, things just really clicked for me. And sorry, blowing up my phone. Um, yeah, it really clicked for me. And I think my mindset was like, oh, you do have all the power. You do have so many more options than you thought you did. And that was so empowering and terrifying. And I didn't have a choice. Like, I genuinely had to try. I had to give it a shot. I had to go all in. Even if I failed, I just genuinely, I was like, it's fine. Like, I just have to try. So
I feel like that's such a good, even like a mindset to have is at least just try. Like the worst that could happen is it doesn't go your way. You learn from it, you experience it, you grow, but at least you tried and did something.
for sure. And I think our as a society and in communities and as human beings, we are so petrified of failure. We're so petrified of things not going our way or making mistakes. And I had to get comfortable very quickly with not being very good at something, with not knowing how to run a business and not knowing how to get clients and not knowing how to have an Instagram or a website. And that was something that was probably one of the toughest things for me. I think that was something that held me back for a really long time because in my career, I was very good. I was one of the best. And that always feels very good. But when you go and you start your own business, you start from scratch and you have to fucking hustle and you have to grind and you have to learn and you have to mess up. Yeah. And you have to get really comfortable with failing and not letting that define you, not letting that determine your value, not letting that be the end of the road. Because I think what we grow up learning is failure is the end. And then you need to figure something else out versus failure being, I would say, like, failure is feedback, right? Like, failure is a part of the process to success. If you want to be successful, you better get real comfortable with failure.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Failure is part of the natural process. It's part of everything, and I think that, like you said, like people are so afraid to fail. Why is that? Like it's instead of failure, we need to like have a different word for it, like a bump in the road or
Totally.
something.
I actually say that in one of my videos. I'm like, nothing will ever change like the stigma and the weight that the word failure has because it's just been so ingrained in us. So I think, yeah, I think really I love viewing everything as a part of the process, right? So like when it takes too much time or when you fail or when something goes amazing to plan like you never expected, like seeing everything as a part of the process to like you being your highest self, I think is key in terms of really learning to reframe this journey and this process and getting big in our lives and taking control, right? There's so much that makes up. It's not going to be overnight success. Like it doesn't work that way.
Right, exactly. So, why do you think people need coaches?
Yeah, for a plethora of reasons. I think that in my own experience, investing in myself has been one of the most empowering things I could have ever done. Um, and when I have clients who pay their invoice, something happens. Like investment is a tool for empowerment. And when you start to look at yourself as an asset and not just as an asset, but as your best asset, and you look at yourself as worthy of investing in and worthy of spending money on and time on and energy on, that changes the way that you show up in your life. So I think from just a base level of investment, whether that's with a coach or going to the spa, like whatever, like getting a gym membership, investing in yourself is always going to be empowering. But I think coaching is such a boom right now because it's this really amazing, and not all coaching, but like the coaching that I do is this really amazing blend of mindset and this internal world and practical tangible things that you can see almost overnight. With some of my clients, the progress that we have in 3 months, it's almost shocking. Like I just finished up with a client this past Saturday and we were just kind of reflecting over everything. And I was like, I genuinely didn't know this many things could get done in 3 months. So you've just kind of raised the bar. But I think it's this really amazing blend of mindset and goal setting. And I think that for our generation, millennials, we're the most unsatisfied generation in the workforce and that's ever been. I think the satisfaction rate sits between anywhere from 70 to 75, the dissatisfaction rate. And
Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah, it's huge. It's insane. And so, I think that comes from a lot of things. I think social media and I think, our parents and all of these things. But I think our generation is really seeing like, oh, like I can be my own boss or I have the capacity to do more. And if you're willing to kind of take that step and ask for help and invest in yourself, it can absolutely change your life. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons, whether it's mindset, goal setting, career growth. There's a million different reasons why you can get a coach. But I think in general, like overall empowerment to be your highest self is pretty much what it's rooted in, I would say.
So, what if there's someone who is interested in getting a coach, and there's so many people out there who are coaches? If you go on Instagram, so how do you suggest someone would find like their perfect coach for them?
This is a great question because when I entered this space, um, I started researching, right? Like I started trying to find other coaches and I resonated with no one. I felt like everyone was like so woo, like so overly, not overly, but very spiritual, very like full on. And that was really intimidating for me because I didn't understand that world yet. And so my key thing is make sure like you can resonate with the person unless you are trying to grow in like your spiritual journey and that's something that you're really wanting, but I think that's key. I think the second thing is hire a coach who has a similar past as you or is in a place that you want to be, right? Coaching, so much of coaching, I always say your lived experience is your expertise, right? Like the life that your coach has lived and the experiences and the jobs and the failures, like you get to learn from that. And so if you see someone on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and you're like, wow, their story is so interesting and it actually like mirrors mine a little bit, or I would love to be doing that, or I would love to know how they did that, that's a great indicator that that's someone who you could connect with, even if it's just for one session. But I would say with a lot of my clients, they're just a few steps behind where I was just a couple of years ago. And there's no shame in saying that. Like I used to feel really cringy when I say that, like, oh, like, but like I said, lived experience is expertise. And so, me having quit my job and me having learned the process that is building a business, now I get to help women step into that and potentially build their own businesses or grow their careers in the corporate sector or just overall be more satisfied. Um, yeah, so it's really interesting. So if you are looking for a coach, I would definitely recommend like make sure you choose someone who you connect with on a personal level, someone who you look at and you're like, yeah, I want to get like a drink with this person or get a coffee with them or whatever. There needs to be that level of relatability, which I've learned the hard way. I've hired coaches who I do not resonate with whatsoever, and you can feel it. Although they have great advice and although they have great resources, that connection isn't there, right? Like, and the other people who they hired, like, or they work with, were not like me at all. So I was like the only 20 something. I was the only like person of color. So you want to really work with someone who has the same values as you.
And then someone who is like thinking about that, but they're like, oh, but I don't want to put that money. I'm scared to invest that money. I don't know like if I'm going to get a return. What would you say?
Yeah, I get this question all the time. Um, if you're going to invest in yourself, you have to believe that there's going to be a return. You have to. If you're already going in skeptical, that's a problem. And I do this with potential clients. Like if you've ever worked with me, I will send you affirmations in our email. Like I can see that you're struggling here. Why don't you take a few days and look at these mantras or look at these affirmations or think about your mindset with investment? Why is it that you're happy to spend $400 on a pair of boots with no thinking, but when it comes to spending $1,000 or $2,000 on something that will change your life, period. Um, you're hesitant, you're doubting, and oftentimes it has nothing to do with spending the money, but it has everything to do with not living in your potential after. And so I think changing your mindset around investing, I always say, like, every time I invest in myself, I make double the return. That's what I always say. And so really changing your mind, and for me now, investing is like my favorite thing. Like I love spending money on my business and I love spending money on myself and investing in coaches and mentors who can help me grow, because I know that there is going to be a huge return at the end of that. I know that that money is going to find its way, 10 times bigger than what it was. So investing is scary. I absolutely get it. But staying in the same place that you're at and staying dissatisfied and staying small and staying feeling the type of way that you're feeling is a lot scarier, right? And so I would just spend some time thinking about your thoughts around investment and how you can reframe those, because yeah, it's going to change your life, but you have to have the right mindset going in. I think even with clients who do have those doubts, I always send them off for a couple days to think about it and to really reframe. And then the ones who come back and have done the work, they're ready to get to work. And the ones who haven't, we don't typically end up working together. So yeah, you want to make sure clients are ready.
Yeah. So the how you said, would you rather stay where you are and be the same place here? I was like, oh, that hit me because like the pain of staying the same is almost just as bad. Like it's worse.
Oh, it's worse. It's so worse. Because here's the thing, you're going to say no to investing in yourself. Let's say you get on a call with a coach, they talk to you about a program they have, you're like shocked at the price, whatever. You say no, you go off, right? You're feeling the same, unsatisfied. You've talked yourself out of, not investing in yourself. You will invest in something eventually. You'll buy something, you'll do something that'll be a band aid, that'll be something to numb the pain or distract you or whatever it is. And I think when you're in that beginning stage of growth and you're wanting to really change your life, people have very limited views of what growth looks like. People have very limited views of what can happen. And as we were speaking about earlier about that client, like and I say this with every client, like coaching is fast track growth. Never in your life have you had someone who is fully committed to your growth and you're committed to it. You've got two people, right? So you've got accountability, you've got structure, you've got resources. That is powerful. And so coaching, at least the coaching that I do, we focus on fast tracked, tangible, sustainable growth. And you would be shocked at what that looks like over a month, over 2 months, over 3 months. And so, we have to realize we have a lot of like pre downloaded things that aren't necessarily true. We always think growth has to be really hard and it always has to take a really long time. And that's just false.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious about the other side. Like, how is it to become a coach? What do you think about that?
Becoming a coach. Yeah. Oh gosh.
Did you like that journey? Like, was it a lot of studying you had to do, or like, what was it about?
So I originally went with ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation, to get a certification. And then I studied NLP, which is like neuro linguistic programming. And I really enjoyed the NLP side of it. But to be perfectly honest, I don't think you need a certification to become a coach personally. Like I said, lived experience is expertise. And I think that we're entering into a stage of our like economy and into like the job market where like consulting and coaching is huge. People are charging people just for the information that they know. And so if you are interested in becoming a coach, I would just take a step back and think about that. Like, what is my lived experience? And what, like, oftentimes I ask my clients, like, what are you an expert at? And in the beginning, of course, it's like nothing, I'm good at a little bit of everything. And then by the end, they've got a lot of clarity around like, oh, like I'm an expert in this and really owning what they bring to the table. So personally, I don't believe that you need like this full on certification to become a coach, although I did do formal training. Um, but I think you do need some type of support or structure. So there's coaches who teach coaches how to become coaches and all of that good stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately what's more important is figuring out the problem that you want to solve for your clients. I didn't think about that for a really long time, like all throughout the time that I was in school, which is a problem. But I think really thinking about what is the transformation that I want to offer, because that's everything, right? Like this work is client centered. This all the work that I do is run by clients. Everything I tailor everything to my clients, and so it's really important to have that clarity of what is the problem that I want to solve. And then obviously looking at your lived experience, looking at, what you excel in and what you've experienced, and then going from there. But yeah, coaching is amazing, or even consulting, or whatever you want to call it. There's lots of different things. Mentorship, like there's a million different names for it, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an industry that is booming right now, like you said. Like, I've always been kind of interested in it, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to do schooling and whatever for it. But now that you said that you don't think, I'm like, okay, that gives me permission to like explore that a little bit more, you know?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like I talk to clients who want to become coaches or who want to become anything, and there's always this assumption of, well, I'm gonna have to go back to school. I'm gonna have to spend lots of money to get the education, and I just don't think that's true. I just, like sure, I learned some valuable tools when I was in school, especially for the NLP side of things. If you know what that is, it's really, really interesting. To be perfectly honest, I don't use it a ton in my business. Um, and the way that I learned how to become a coach is by coaching people. So I had pro bono clients. I worked with people, my partner was my guinea pig, my friends were my guinea pigs, and I had to put the time and the work in to really figure out what I wanted my business to look like, how I wanted to coach women. Um, and so, personally, that's my opinion. And to be honest, I don't actually know a lot of certified coaches, but to be perfectly candid with you, like yeah. So this industry is very, as of right now, is it's pretty unregulated, which is a little bit scary. So make sure that whoever you're working with actually knows what they're doing. Um, But yeah, if you want to become a coach, hit me up. Let's talk.
Yeah, I think that has it that's kind of the same thing with anything. Like I kind of always thought that you don't really need a degree, and I have my degree and it's in something totally unrelated. It's in finance. And I mean, I at least studied that and worked in that field to enough to know that that's not what I want to do. So that, I feel like that
Amen.
kind of that is the only value that benefited me. But I feel like so many of us have um, that block or that obstacle, like, oh, I need to have this certain degree or this certain, this thing that is, and it's stopping us from doing whatever we want to do. So
Oh, totally, totally. And I think a great question just to ask is like, what would you do if you didn't have to do that, right? What would you do if you didn't have to go and get a certification? How would that change things? And let your brain go to that place. We're so scared to want things. We're so scared to like let ourselves go to that place. But give yourself a little bit of room and a little bit of freedom to just be like, okay, what if I didn't have to get like a formal certification? What if I could like just start taking clients or start taking pro bono clients or whatever it is, whatever field of work you want to be in, whether it's a photographer or videographer, whatever it is, graphic designer, like what if you didn't have to do that? And how does that free you up? And how would you act? And how would it's all about asking better questions. I am the biggest believer in learning how to ask yourself better questions and how that can change everything.
yes, amen. Totally agree. So, being a success coach, do you have a recipe for success or is it kind of different for everybody?
Oh man, I think step one is clarify what success means to you. I love the word success and I love working with women on being successful because everyone's definition is so insanely different, right? Some people don't care at all about money. They just want to travel the world and have freedom and flexibility. Some people care a ton about, making sure that they have that stability and having that they want to earn six figures, they want to earn seven figures. Some people, success means being creative and being able to work in spaces where you're inspired. And so I think that's probably my favorite thing about success is we all have our different definitions. So I think step one in success, in growth, in manifestation is getting clear and clarifying what you want. What I find and what is a real shame is we live our lives complaining a lot but never ever getting clear on what we actually want. And the first thing that I do with clients is we sit down, we have this huge like mother document that we use. And it's literally, I had a client send it through and it was 14 pages. Um, yeah. And we get really, really fucking clear on what do you want and why do you want it? And why is this important for you? I think that we're not spending enough time and creating enough space in our lives to answer these questions because I complained for years. Years. I felt dissatisfied. I was a little brat, constantly complaining, but I never spent the time or created the space or invested in myself to actually figure out what I wanted. But I was happy to constantly complain. I was happy to be grumpy. I was happy, all these things. And so my step one in success is clarify what that means for you. Learn to be honest with yourself. If success for you is not working 40 hours, like for me, I don't want to work 40 hours a week straight up, but I want to earn six figures or more, right? Like I've had to get over that block that those two are associated, that working harder and more is going to earn me more money. Now I have the view that being responsive and working in a space and the amount of time that serves me and allows me to be the fullest self makes me the most money. And that's what has proven to be true in my business. So get clear on what success means to you, spend the time, do the work, ask the right questions. And once you do that, I promise you something will happen. Inspired action will start to take place and you'll start to see things shift because clarity is so powerful.
Yes. Amen. I love that. I love that. In the beginning too, you were saying that like money, success is different for everybody, and I feel like a lot of people think that money equals success, but I think that the money is like a vehicle to what you actually want. Is it the freedom? Is it the anything else? The stability, So I love that you touched on that. So what is your biggest challenge that you're facing right now? This is what I'm asking everybody in the comments. So what is your biggest challenge?
I probably said something different last week when we were meeting, but now I actually know what my biggest challenge is. So I started my business, although I quit in November of last year, I really didn't start my business until March. And so that's when I got my first client. I had a website, I was kind of rolling in terms of like I knew sort of what I wanted to offer. Um, and so I have ran my business solely during COVID and quarantine. We live in Australia, we're in Melbourne, and Melbourne has had the harshest lockdown in the world. So we have been locked down essentially in stage 4 lockdown since March. There was like 3 or 4 weeks in the middle there where we got let out and then it boomed again, but they're not fucking around here. So we literally could only go outside for like an hour a day for many, many months. It was really, really it was really intense. So I have ran my business without any distractions, obviously, other than a global pandemic. But really, like not really needing to know how to balance friends and socializing and when we're able to traveling again and things like that. And so now that we're out of lockdown, we have been COVID free for 12 days. And yeah, and things are kind of going back to normal. We're having dinners. It's summertime here. It's about to be summertime. Yeah, learning how to balance. So that's going to be a really, really interesting transition, I think, in terms of how to really, yeah, show up in my business fully, but then show up in my personal life fully. How to not feel the guilt that is, not working enough because it's still there. Like I'm not going to lie to you. There's still moments where I'm like, I could be doing more. And still expecting full success, right? I don't want to budge on the money that I want to make or the impact that I want to have with my clients. So that is definitely going to be an interesting opportunity over the next couple of months, really learning how to, yeah, find kind of my special formula that is being an entrepreneur and yeah, having that freedom and flexibility to go on trips and live my life. And that's the beauty of this work, right? Like I can work from anywhere in the world. It's amazing. And a huge the main reason that I did this was to have that freedom and flexibility and control. But it takes some getting used to. It takes some real responsibility and really showing up and getting clear. And I think also after the year that we've had, what I'm finding is people are really exhausted. And I'm included in that. So, yeah, feeling a bit of fatigue from a year in quarantine and elections and all of these things. And so, yeah, it's really that struggle and opportunity of getting to figure out like, okay, how do I show up for the life that I want in this new context now? It's exciting, but it's also yeah, it's a little
A
sticky
lot going
right now.
on. This year has definitely been a wild ride.
Oh
so,
my gosh. Jeez.
um, so I know you have to go, but just one quick last question. What is your morning routine like?
What is my what?
Morning routine like?
Morning
Do
routine.
you
Yes.
have a routine or do you have anything that you do special in the morning to kind of get you ready for the day?
Yes, of course. Okay. I believe a morning routine can change your life personally. I know that's a big statement. I talk about this with my clients
I
all the
agree. I agree.
time. Yeah, to me, a morning routine is like the ultimate luxury. Like you wake up and you just like completely indulge yourself in terms of like whatever it is that makes you feel the best and the most connected. So I wake up, ideally around 7 o'clock every morning, but sometimes at 7:30. And the first thing I do is lemon water. I've done it for maybe like 5 or 6 years now. I've been doing it for ages. So hot lemon water. And then I do all of my practices. So I'm a huge journaler. I love to write. And I just put it all on the page. And I practice visualization a ton. So if you don't know what visualization is, you can visit my page. But in a nutshell, it's essentially visualizing your highest self and seeing what you can take from that and seeing how you can embody that today, right now. I have a huge belief that we can learn so much from the person that we want to become. So I do all my practices that usually can take anywhere from like 20 to 30 minutes, pour myself a nice big cup of coffee. My partner is hanging out in the morning typically. And we just chill. Like I love just like a very cruisy chill morning. And then straight into workout clothes, work out every like at least 5 days a week, and then start to work. But I'm all about a slow morning. I'm definitely not like wake up, check emails. Like I'm taking my time. Like I want to make sure that I'm filled up and I'm aware and I'm connected to myself, because obviously the work that I do has a lot to do with my capacity, but also just personally, I think what personal practices and having a consistent morning routine has done for me in my level of awareness and in my ability to be responsive to what I need is absolutely insane. My intuition and just my ability to know what I need is crazy, because 2 years ago I was so lost and I had no clue how to gauge what I needed. So to see how, like, to see the shift and the evolution that morning routine and those personal practices have done, like I always just challenge my clients in the first 30 days of us working together to create a routine, and they end up sticking with it the entire time. Because it's huge, and we don't spend enough time just with ourselves, with our thoughts, curating just that intentional time. It's so important. So that is my morning routine, and if you don't have one, challenge you to do it for the next week. I guarantee you'll want to keep going.
Yes, I love that morning routine. It sounds like my ideal morning routine. It's not what I always end up doing, but that sounds like my ideal one that I strive to, but I'm not always that consistent. But I like that before, when you didn't have your mindset right or whatever, I bet you didn't have that morning routine, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I really struggled with, again, being quite a black and white person in terms of like, I just lived out of my ego. I thought like very practical, very like, what problem does this solve? So when I looked at journaling or I looked at visualization, I didn't even know what that was 2 years ago. But when I looked at affirmations or mantras or whatever, I was like, I just don't see the point. Like to me, they were a total waste of time. And that's because I had no clue, one, how out of touch I was with myself, and two, the power that they held. And so once I started really showing up consistently and really asking like, what if this could serve me? Like that's one of my big questions that I always ask is like, what if this could serve me? What if this was a thing that elevated me, that took me to the next level, even if it was just like a quarter of a level or whatever it is, you know? And I think that what I found with personal practices is, to me, they feel so luxurious and they feel so just like extra, almost like in the best way, because you look around and we live in a world that's so go go go, so busy. People are so disconnected from themselves, and to be able
It's like a
to,
form of self-care.
oh, 1,000%, totally. It's huge. I think self relationship, self love, self awareness, like step one step one in the game of growth and really creating that space. And it's crazy, like I always say this to my clients, like I'm like, it doesn't take 30 minutes, it doesn't take an hour, 10 minutes. Commit 10 minutes every day to yourself before you do anything else, and see how that changes your life. I always like say these big statements and I'm always like, that's really big, but I'm like, this shit is, I'm not lying,
No, it's
like I
true. It's
swear.
true. Yeah, I mean, you have to give to yourself first before you give to everyone else every single day. I think it's very logical.
Absolutely, 100%. So, yes, commit to 10 minutes over the next like 5 days, anyone who's watching this, and see how it changes. Like the way that you show up, your energy, your awareness. Like I guarantee you, it'll shift some things.
Definitely. Well, Alexa, thank you so much. I know you gotta go, but I'm so glad that you have the time to talk with me and everyone else today. So thank you so
Of
much.
course.
Everyone go check her out. She's at Alexa Coaches on Instagram, and then alexamartinezcoaching.com is her
Yes.
website.
Same.
Until next time, though, I will talk to everyone later, I guess.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.